This NFL Wild Card post-game report is presented by Ring. Welcoming two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden, won 2 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he does not like the Cleveland Browns as both a former player and a fan. But I didn't like the Cleveland Browns as a lifelong Browns fan. I didn't like what I saw either. If I had told you that the Houston Texans were going to score 45 points in this game before the game, what would you have said?
35 straight points.
Yeah, 45 total points.
Yeah, 45 total, and they had 35
in a row. Unanswered.
Yeah, if you would have told me that, Hakeem said, no way, Jose. No way, Jose, that's going to happen. I would have been surprised just to hear 45 points as a total for the Houston Texans would have been a thing. But better yet, scoring that and scoring 35 straight points, no, not against this Cleveland Browns defense, not against Myles Garrett and the rest of the pass rushers, Denzel Ward in the back end. No way, Jose. But guess what? That's the reality from what we witnessed down in H-Town. Stand up. C.J. Stroud put on a show. Luckily enough for Cleveland and their defense, you didn't really see a lot of C.J. in the second half because all the points basically came from the defense in the third quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns. But C.J. Stroud jump-started the efforts for this team in the first half, and they were just able to put it in cruise control and just cruise the rest of the way to a huge victory.
Well, this is also problematic. Things come up in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
The Browns defense at home was way better than when it was on the road. They gave up some 30 points per game on the road compared to 14 at home.
That's unheard of.
And it reared its ugly head in this game.
And it showed up. Now, remember also, too, the first time they played Houston with Case Keenum as the quarterback.
Correct.
The Texans scored 22 points.
Yep.
Right? Joe Flacco had a few interceptions, but it wasn't an issue because they had Amari Cooper, who had a heroic-like day, so it was kind of swept under the rug a little bit. Played against the Texans today, and they were basically healthier than what they were the first meeting with their quarterback, especially in the lineup in C.J. Stroud. And we just saw some of the things that Case Keenum was not able to exploit for the Houston Texans. It was the opposite for C.J. Stroud. He was able to take advantage of some of those miscues, blown coverages in the back end, guys running wide open, nice design concepts offensively for the Houston Texans. And, of course, with his accuracy, he's going to complete passes more than not completing those passes, even though he did miss an easy bookie and touchdown to Nico Collins. Outside of that, C.J. was flawless today. Flawless.
Where did it break down for Cleveland?
The inability to prevent splash plays. You remember at halftime I talked about some of the splash plays that Houston, they were able to benefit from. We saw a 38-yarder, a 76-yarder, a 37-yarder, a 27-yarder, only in 2 quarters. That happened before halftime, going into the locker room. Those were the big splash plays that the Texans were able to complete. And that was the final touchdown right before halftime. Halftime with Dalton Schultz, the 7-cut, bend it back to a post route. Well-designed play when you talk about the rollout concept as well. And those were the things that became an issue for Cleveland. And also, not being able to put pressure on C.J. Stroud. Guess how many sacks the Cleveland Browns had today? Guess.
0.
0. 0. They have an all-pro, all-world defender on their front by the name of Myles Garrett. How many times did we hear his name? None. And Tunzel, had handcuffs out there on him. He would just basically put the handcuffs on Myles Garrett and say, you're not going nowhere. And he did that for 4 quarters. So hats off to the entire offensive line crew, led by Tunzel. They did a great job in protecting the young quarterback, and the young quarterback did a great job in just taking what was given to him and making sure he completed those said opportunities.
Joe Flacco was sacked 4 times through 2 pick sixes. The joke coming in was Flacco around and find out. Well, we didn't really have to Flacco around and find out. He turns 39 years old in 3 days. This is sort of what every fan was thinking, and Cleveland Browns fans, like, hey, it's just a matter of time. The old Joe Flacco will come out. 4-1 to finish the season. Threw for more than 1,300 yards.
But he had 7 interceptions.
Yep. And this is sort of the Joe Flacco experience. There's highs, there's lows. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens. He was potentially going to get to the next round and face Baltimore in the divisional round. But then this play action problems, just sort of lazy throws in the backfield? I didn't really understand what was going on there.
The thing that I love about playoff football, and I think NFL football fans would agree with me who were, tuning in with us, is that some of the woes, mistakes that we've seen in regular season play, during the playoffs, they're magnified. It's ×2.
Of course.
Joe Flacco, yes, he was the talk of the town since becoming the starting quarterback, but he had 7 interceptions. Offensively, in totality, the Cleveland Browns led the National Football League in turnovers, around 37. I think that was the final number they finished the season with in turnovers. But it wasn't a big deal because they were still finding ways to win ball games. Their defense was doing a phenomenal job keeping them in position to win ball games. So those mistakes that we saw throughout the regular season, it wasn't big talk because they were winning ball games and they were taking care of the teams they were supposed to take care of. But when you create habits, those habits will follow you wherever it is that you go. If you're playing at home or if you're playing on the road, they will follow you. As I mentioned earlier too, in playoff football, those mistakes are magnified. It's like 2. It's like having 1 interception. It feels like it's 2 interceptions. When you score 1 touchdown, it feels like it's 2 touchdowns in playoff football because mistakes are at a minimum. And that's what we saw. Some of the same things that we watched from Cleveland. You talked about the road woes. Defensively, they allowed 30 points in the regular season on the road. How many did they give up today?
45.
45. Well, if you want to take the 14 away, away, they still reach their average, basically. They still reach their average. So these are the things that we don't talk about enough when teams are winning ball games. And that's why you cannot tolerate things in a win that you will not tolerate in a loss, because they will follow you and they will become a part of who you are in regards to the DNA that you put on the football field.
Yeah, we do examine fatal flaws, though, right? Like when teams win games, we do post-game of every NFL game, and we talk about, okay, they won this game, but what are your concerns right now about this club still? And that was one of the things that we talked about at the Cleveland Browns throughout the season, was their ability or their inability to give up points on the road. So good at home, not so good on the road. Now, you look at back what Amari Cooper did in Week 16 on the road against these Houston Texans. Franchise record, 265 yards. He had 59 yards receiving.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator Matt Burke said, can't play like that again. Yeah. Can't have a game like that again. Did they completely take him out? What did you see from the Texans' defensive look when they were facing Amari Cooper in this game?
Shell coverage, 2 safeties, deep, keeping everything in front of them, and they were not going to allow the splash plays that the Browns benefited off of the first time to happen in today's matchup, which was huge. Not to mention they did a great job tackling as well, especially in space. When you talk about having a successful defense that can put their offense in positions to win ball games, those defenses tackle well. Secondary tackle well. The linebackers, of course, the guys on the front, they did a great job in tackling. We didn't see a lot of missed tackles like we saw in the first meeting. But the most important thing, as I will state, was the splash plays. The inability for Cleveland to capitalize on some of those splash plays like they did the first meeting. It was role reversals, basically, because what we saw from Cleveland in the first meeting, we saw in today's meeting for the Houston Texans and C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud was incredible in this game. He is the youngest rookie of all time to win a playoff game, 22 years old. 22 years old, the 8th rookie to win a playoff game as they win this one 45-14. C.J. Stroud, get this, he tied or set the rookie single-game playoff records for completion percentage, passer rating, passing touchdowns, and margin of victory. C.J. Stroud put on a clinic.
Yes, he did.
In his first playoff start. How was he able to be so effective?
I mean, it's just who he is. He has the uncanny ability when moments seem to be at their highest, when the kitchen is getting super, super hot. He's that chef that just walks into the kitchen like it's cool and normal and still goes about his business to be able to deliver whatever dish you want him to deliver, and it's tasteful. That's who your quarterback has to be. When everybody else is getting a little rattled, they're biting their nails. Like, oh, what are we going to do? I got this. He's like the best move side coach you could have. Move side. He just calms you down. Because when you watch him play football, even when the pocket is collapsing and seeing some of the throws he made today, just fading back off on his heels, feet not together, he just delivering passes, and he goes about it like it's so easy. This is a guy that's playing with a lot of confidence, and most importantly for me, the best way to see if a quarterback has that it factor, just look at how he makes the others around him look. Nico Collins before this season was a guy that was just trying to find his way in the league. Robert Woods before this season was a guy that was trying to revitalize his career. Singletary was a guy before this season with C.J. Stroud was a guy that was just trying to show that I can still tote the rock. And remember, before this season, it wasn't like Singletary was always considered to be a featured back. But this season, when he got the opportunity, when Damian Pearson went down with an injury, Devin Singletary showed everyone, no, I can be a featured back. But a lot of his success comes from what the young quarterback has been able to display and put forth for all of us to talk about and enjoy as well. That's one of the more bigger telling signs from a great quarterback. When he can make the others look like, wow. Noah Brown, the same thing, was another guy that was just trying to stay in the league.
Well, it's not like he's not used to having great receivers, and I'm not saying because the Texans aren't necessarily qualified as great receivers in the NFL. But look at the receivers he threw to at Ohio State. He was used to having talent around him. He elevated these guys this season.
One of the knocks on CJ at Ohio State was that he always had the luxury of having NFL wide receivers to throw the football to. So some people felt like, well, he should have the numbers that he's been putting up at Ohio State there in Columbus, because look at the wide receivers, first rounder after first rounder. But he came into this organization with he didn't have the same luxury. There weren't a lot of household names at the pass catching position, right? But he's been able to get these guys to flourish, to really exceed the expectations, especially if you talk about what you visualize this team looking like in August. Think about that. What did you visualize this team looking like in August?
Well, they won 3 games last season.
At the wide receiver position specifically.
Yeah.
Because these guys are benefiting from having great quarterback play. Great quarterbacks make other guys look better than what we've seen in years past. And that's what we're seeing. Nico Collins is looking like a franchise quarterback. One of the best things that happened to Nico Collins is C.J. Stroud. And don't forget about Tank Dell as well. Before he went out with his injury, what he was doing in this offense. Dalton Schultz, yes, you got him from Dallas. Dallas didn't even want to pay him. They felt like, no, we're not going to give you the money you're looking for because we don't see you as that type of guy. He's a guy in this offense because of the quarterback play. Great quarterbacks in the National Football League, when we watch them, when you look at the Pat Mahomes of the world, when you look at some of the other great quarterbacks, they make other guys look good.
They do. C.J. Stroud making history in his first playoff game, the youngest starting quarterback to win a playoff game all time, 22 years old. Time now for Answering the Bell, presented by Ring. Who answered the bell in Houston? Pretty simple.
Yeah, I don't want to sound redundant, but it is what it is. It's C.J. Stroud. He answered the bell for me because this was his first playoff appearance at home against, on paper, one of the best defenses in the National Football League, even though they struggled on the road. And he tore them apart. He had a field day. It was one of those situations when we were in school and it was field day opportunity. You knew you were going to have fun. It was field day for C.J. Stroud in the Houston Texans. 274 yards, 3 touchdowns. He completed 76% of his passes against this defense. And luckily enough for the Cleveland Browns, he took his foot off the gas in the second half. Because if his defense didn't score 2 touchdowns, C.J. Stroud probably would have thrown 2 more touchdowns. So he answered the bell today, big time. Shouts out to C.J. Stroud, his entire team. Big time win led by the young rookie quarterback.
C.J. Stroud answering the bell in Houston as they win the playoff game 45-14. He's the youngest starting quarterback to win a playoff game all time, 22 years old.
Yeah.
He passes Michael Vick.
They found their guy.
He passes Michael Vick, who is C.J. Stroud's hero. He loves Michael Vick.
Yeah.
He talks to him. He has a relationship with him, and he makes history on this day in Houston.
Man, it's a good feeling when you draft a young quarterback and he he's looking like that guy.
Look at that. Most passing yards by a rookie in NFL history.
He missed 2 ball games, by the way. Remember that.
He did. He was out with a concussion, and it just magnifies, maybe at this point, I would say, how poorly the Carolina Panthers' decision was to take Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud.
Too soon.
It's fine too soon, but everybody's saying it. You know that's what they're saying, because C.J. Stroud looks like a veteran, and he's a rookie, and he just made history in his very first playoff game.